Hey, Ride Utah. Kevin with Ride Utah TV. Stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about FabRats and what happened with the whole DNR officer thing. Kind of some new stuff that's come out, not specifically with that officer, but DNR as a whole. And it's going to lead right into the main topic of this video is the difference between urban and rural. There's a big difference. Stay tuned. Okay, everybody, I'll make this quick. We're going to jump right into it. I know you've been wondering, well, maybe you've been wondering what's happened since the whole FabRats thing with the DNR, because that opened up a massive can of worms. I mean, you may not have seen it online, on TV. We didn't put any videos out about it. They stopped putting videos out about it, except for his last one where he has his new t-shirt. If you haven't bought his new t-shirt, you need to go buy it. Quagga Smuggler. I thought that was fantastic. Loved it. Sent a picture of it to my friends in the governor's office. I'll tell you what, it caused a huge stir at the DNR. Phones were ringing off the hook, emails were filling up, and that officer got relocated. We haven't seen him since. Don't know what happened to him, but he's gone. He's out of here. And they laid down the law. The governor stepped in, realized something's not right. County attorneys, sheriffs, local law enforcement besides sheriffs, mayors, business leaders all said, this is a real thing. Paul is telling his story, but it happens day in and day out in rural Utah. This is just what we live with down here. And yeah, it sounds crazy to people who live on the Wasatch Front, but it's reality if you live in rural Utah. It just is. So the governor ordered the director of the Division of Natural Resources to review the law enforcement practices of the DNR. Now, that can mean a lot of things. But one thing it absolutely means is they recognize that there's just too many law enforcement arms. So after all this happened, things were good, we're moving along, we're making some progress. A local sheriff gets a phone call, says there is a recreation ranger citing people for tubing without a life jacket. You know how investigations work. You get a complaint, you start investigating it, you pass on the information that you know, you collect data, you ask questions, you interview, do everything you need to do, and then eventually you come to an accurate representation of what's been going on. You know what's happening, right? After a while, you've done enough investigation. Turns out that it was a state parks ranger telling people he was a recreation ranger, and he was outside of a state park, and he was on a county recreation site, and he absolutely was telling people that if you tube without a life jacket in a 4-foot deep river that everybody around here tubes in every 4th of July, I'll give you a $150 ticket. I know that for a fact because I know one of the people he told it to. And so I know it actually happened. Now they can deny it, they can say whatever they want, they can say it wasn't 30 or 40 or 50 people, but I verified the information is right. Did he cite people? No, he didn't issue any citations. You want to know why he didn't issue citations? Because the county attorney would have thrown him out. I've heard from several county attorneys that said these guys need to start either sending us better cases or stop sending us stuff at all. And, you know, that's a problem if you're the DNR. So the governor very rightly recognized the problem and is addressing it. That's why I've endorsed Governor Cox. I don't know if there's any relation to Paul Cox. I do know Governor Cox. I don't know Paul Cox personally. But that's why I've endorsed him for re-election. Because he's from rural Utah. He lives down here, and he recognizes that there's a problem. And he's trying to fix it. This is a huge agency. I mean huge. And 99% of the employees in that agency are awesome. But the guys that live in Salt Lake, and how crazy is this? You run an agency that governs the assets of rural Utah from Salt Lake City. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, yet they're so afraid of moving that off the Wasatch Front down into rural Utah. that they're putting up a fight at every corner. Every time we even bring it up, it becomes a huge fight. I learned something throughout this whole process. When I found out that the governor ordered a review of law enforcement assets or law enforcement practices within the Division of Natural Resources, at the same time I found out that these recreation rangers had been created and existed. Now, a little bit of background. I'm getting on 5 minutes here. I'm gonna try and keep this to 15 minutes of background. State of Utah used to manage all of its recreation stuff from different places around the state. Governor's Office of Economic Development, Office of Tourism, Division of Natural Resources, state parks, all these things used to have this portion, we did the mountain bikes, we do the boats, we did the ATVs, we do the mountain climbing and mountain biking, that kind of stuff. They combined them all into one agency at the Division of Natural Resources. They call it Division of Outdoor Recreation. And as they started bringing people in, they moved over the former director of the Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation. His name was Pitt Grew, a super nice guy, a private industry guy. He had come from a private mapping company, if I remember right, and he was running the office, but he only lasted a year. And then he was forced out, and they started bringing in police officers. And I realized at that point, there was a huge red flag to me. Why are we staffing the people, the office that oversees our recreation assets, with law enforcement officers? That just seems a little heavy-handed. Then the FabRats thing happened. Those two things, those red flags and the FabRats thing started ringing in my ear. Then the recreation ranger or the state parks ranger calling himself a recreation ranger off of a state park, not anywhere near a state park, harassing citizens. Those three things led us to start creating our videos and start asking questions. Well, I'm gonna tell you what happened. All of the people who I thought were friends within the OHV lobby in Salt Lake City instantly turned on us. I mean, it was instantaneous. Dropped us like a DNR case in county district court. And I don't have any proof of it, but I'm gonna find out. I've got grandma requests in for text messages, emails, meeting notes. And if the OHV lobby in Utah is behind the creation of the recreation ranger, you will be the first to know. And you have my word on it. But I don't know. But they did drop us. Maybe the more plausible explanation is that they're really close to the people that live on the Wasatch Front. They're close to those offices, and there was a little bit of pressure put on them. But look, I put my boots on the same way everybody else does. I don't wear a cowboy hat to look like cowboy. I wear a cowboy hat to keep the sun off my neck. And I don't pretend to be anything but just a real guy. I don't give a damn what they say. I'm gonna do what's right for rural Utah. And I'm gonna talk, why is it different? Why do urban guys look at this so much different than rural? I'm gonna be real quick about this. When you live in this big city and you're surrounded by millions of people, you go to work every day, you might run into 2, maybe 3 different law enforcement agencies. In fact, I can only think of 3 max. Highway patrol, sheriff, and city cop. But you get out in rural Utah, and I can't count them on both hands how many different agencies we have. Different police forces with different people running them and different objectives and different things to look at when they leave the office every day and different people to report to. And we lose track of them. I mean, I will post things on Facebook all the time, and I get corrected. Oh, it's this agency, not this agency, this agency. It's just too big, right? Last month, I was out on a BLM tract of land. I was headed to a job, and I had to stop because I got some cell phone signal, and I had to conduct some business. And I had 4 different law enforcement agencies stop us, ask me what the hell I was doing. And all I was doing was making phone calls. One of the guys was actually wanting to look in my truck and see what's going on. You see, this is asinine. Now, when you live up there and you come down and recreate in rural Utah, I understand your concern that if another idiot from up there comes down and tears up the trails, that your trails can get shut down. I get it. I don't want it either. I live here. I have to use those trails for work. In fact, I put 500 miles on a four-wheeler just in the last 2 months, and 300 miles of it was actually working, not recreating. And I have to use that for access. So I completely get it. I completely understand where you're so afraid of them closing down your trails that you think that the obvious solution is to add more police. But you got to look at it I implore you, look at it from a rural perspective. I have to deal with that then every single day. You may come down a month, a week or two, a year. I have to deal with it every day. And these people down here have to deal with it every day. And then it creates issues like you're seeing with Paul Cox and the issues that he had. I heard a story, this happened since that issue. A landowner was on his own land and got cited for hunting out of season because he was carrying a rifle. He was, and down here we just carry weapons, right? Because when you're out, you never know when some cougar is going to come. He's going to be in a bad mood, or you're going to find a rabid coyote or an animal that's having a bad day. You need to be ready for it. But when you got an agency that's misinterpreting that and trying to accuse you of doing something you're not doing, we see it every day in DC. We're seeing it all over the place where the people, the boots on the ground, feel like they have to produce numbers. That's something that I need to bring up here. I don't blame the local DNR officers or the DWR officers or the recreation rangers or the state park rangers. I don't blame them. You know who I blame? It goes again back to Salt Lake City. Those guys have to have numbers to report to the legislature. If you're in the legislature and you're listening to this video right now, you need to change that. Stop patting them on the back when they come and sit down in interim and say, we issued 372 citations for this and 1,672 citations for this and blah, 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 blah. Balance it with the other complaints you're hearing about them looking for reasons to cite people because they're getting pressure from Salt Lake City to find things that are wrong in order for them to justify their jobs. And here we are, we get to go to the grocery store with these guys, and we go to church with them, and we sit on the sidelines of our kids' soccer games with them, and they're the salt of the earth. They're the best people on the face of the earth. Yet, in order to keep a job, they have to meet quotas and they have to go out there and find stuff. And I hate that. I hate it. We don't need that. And so when you create more law enforcement, you're just putting more people in that same position, and it's wrong. Don't do it. I'm not going to stop until we get law enforcement, state law enforcement back under control. In fact, I think the governor's doing a dang good job of it right now. So we haven't really had to come out with it. I felt comfortable posting this video. I'm not going to go much more than that in depth. If you have any questions or concerns or stories or anything, send us an email at rideutah.tv@gmail.com, rideutah.tv@gmail.com. Don't forget to look at us up on Facebook on Ride Utah. And like, share, and subscribe to videos. We really appreciate you watching. We'll see you out on the trail. Take care of the trails. We'll see you down the road. Have a great winter.